My name is Travis Dickinson, and you're watching Atheist Edge. And you should watch Atheist Edge, no matter if you're Southern Baptist or a Christian or an atheist.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Atheist Edge. We are joined today by Caleb, who you may soon get to know better as the great Antitheist. Did I say that correctly after getting it wrong 5 times before we rolled?
I believe so, yeah, that's the correct phonetic enunciation of the word.
Yes, so. He's a up-and-coming atheist rapper. He has an album coming out on April 20th, 2020, and wanted to have him on, talk a bit about his music, how he got into it, what you can expect from the album when it drops. So tell us about the name, first of all. Can you give us some idea where that came from?
Well, you know, I actually, some years ago, I thought that I had made up the name Antitheist or Antitheist, until I actually became a fan of Christopher Hitchens, and I heard him actually say that word in particular. But I was convinced for the longest time that it was like an original idea, you know. So I thought I was pretty clever. But you know, I think the correct phonetic enunciation of the word, you have like a short vowel sound, right, followed by a consonant rather than a hyphen or another vowel. So it's Antitheist. You know what I mean? It's like the closest word in the English dictionary we have to it is antithesis, or you wouldn't call that antithesis. So, sorry guys, you've been pronouncing this fucking word wrong the entire time you've been using it. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm an atheist rapper in the DFW area. You know, about to release my first single, 420. It's called "Religion is Drugz," and all my lyrics are kind of anti-religiously based on poetry that I've been writing for the last 10, 12 years or so. Okay, so you've been doing poetry for a while, and now you're just kind of setting it to music for the first time? Yes, sir, yeah. So what kind of, have you always done poetry? Like, how did that come about? How did you find that was an interest for you? Yeah, I mean, I've been a musician since I was really young, and I actually don't listen to rap music at all. I hate rap music. I listen to pretty much folk and metal. And if there was a combination, a station that put Tool and Bob Dylan on the same channel, that'd kind of be my major influences. But yeah, I've been playing various instruments. I started playing drums when I was 8, guitar when I was 10, you know, banjo, bass, mandolin, kind of pretty much anything I could get my hands on. And just over the last 2 years or so, I kind of realized, you know, all the injustice and bullshit that the world receives with religious views, you know, and touting spirituality, which is not a well-defined term in my book. But those ideas have kind of influenced me over the last couple of years, and I realized that all this poetry that I've been writing for the last 10 years or so kind of just it coagulates with the ideals. And I didn't realize, you know, that I was an atheist until about 2 years ago, and it all just kind of came, you know, crashing down. Yeah, I was a Unitarian for since I was about 16 years old. I'm 27 now, so. A good 8 years of my life, I was kind of convinced that all religions were wrong, but had some sort of semblance of truth to them. At this point, I'm just kind of convinced that there's no reason why to think they can't all be wrong. You know, rather than all have some sort of minor attribute of truth in them, they're probably just all bullshit. You know, if I'm being honest. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't have a whole lot of experience. When I was coming out of religion, I went to a Unitarian church for a couple times because I kind of wanted the like the community aspect of it, but without the necessarily the God belief. Was that kind of where you were at that point, or was there another thing that drew you to the Unitarian church?
Well, that's kind of actually where I'm at now. You know, I've kind of a recluse in my personal life. You know, isolate a little bit. But I think back then it was a genuine belief. You know, I genuinely believe that there was a Christ spirit that we could all embody, and that there's some sort of universal truth that is governing, you know, all of existence. And while that may still be true to this day, there's no reason that I see that we should call it God. Right? We call it the fucking universe for a reason, right? I guess I could have called myself a pantheist for, you know, a while as well, but you know, I think most of these beliefs come from us anthropomorphizing natural phenomenon that could just be easily explained through science. You know, and that's where I'm at now. You know, but the community aspect is becoming a lot more relevant, a lot more important to me as I age, and I see, you know, that the youth in our society aren't being presented with the correct message. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we're all here in North Texas. We're surrounded by mega churches and a very conservative culture. Yeah, I'm not from here. It's been very interesting trying to get used to things around here. But so as your religious views or anti-religious views has evolved, have you found that, is that something that your poetry has helped you kind of work through, express in a certain way, and has led you to this point?
That's a really good question. Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, yeah, I believe that they, you know, have a lot of tie-ins together. And I used to think that, you know, my poetry is kind of just a portion or a source of who I am. And I think really it's motivated or inspired by my beliefs. You see, you know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of people that write music, write lyrics, are less inclined. They try to make it culturally relevant. You know, I'm trying to express what I perceive as the most important question of all of existence. Right? Does a God exist or not? That's it. If it does, then we need to probably abide by those rules that it presents to us. If not, then all bets are off the table. You know?
Yeah, so it's one of those questions that, you know, you'd like to have a settled answer to it, but, you know, we've been arguing about this stuff for thousands and thousands of years, and it seems like only recently, there's always been, I'm sure, atheistic voices out there, but they're not the ones writing the books. They're not the ones, up until maybe the last 100 years or so, that are getting a widespread access to a lot of people, where we have the ability, people say, hey, maybe there's not anything actually out there to begin with. And so it's cool that, excuse me, it's cool that a lot of people, yourself included, our channel included, are able to get their voices out there and help people realize that, hey, they're not the only atheist in their community.
Yeah, I think we're now, you know, we're freely able to express these beliefs without a whole lot of ridicule, and the ridicule that matters, you know, it's a bunch of bullshit. Like I went to protest this church this last weekend, and I didn't feel at all threatened or in danger of my life, and I couldn't guarantee that, you know, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. You know, if you had that outward expression of, hey, what you're teaching is wrong, this hatred towards homosexuals is absolutely wrong in human morality standards. If you had preached those kind of things, you may have been lynched or, you know, burned at the stake or hung, regardless of what your skin color or cultural religious beliefs were. You know, and that's just the toll that religion has taken on our society, you know, over centuries, you know, over millennia, really. But
so as you're working towards putting your poetry to music for the first time and getting this single out, you know, you're talking about you don't really have a whole lot of history with rap.
Right.
How did you go about trying to learn how to, are you working with a producer? How are you getting the actual music side of things down?
Yeah, so I've got an audio engineer, a friend of mine at SG Studios, Tori, this is for you, and she's an incredible audio engineer. She's really helping me through this process, my first time kind of being in the studio. You know, like I said, I play various instruments, but I've never really wanted to put myself out there because I didn't feel like I had a message that mattered. You know, and I'm at this point now where I feel like this is the most important thing that we could be teaching people, is understanding the controversy and educating yourself on the different claims that people are making, the truth claims, universal claims of truth in our world. And I think people have such a wide variety of beliefs that rationality oftentimes doesn't really even get included in their justification for the reasons that they believe things. You know? It's their tradition. It's what they've been told, right?
So, with the title "Religion is Drugs," are you talking like like Marx said, religion is the opiate of the masses? Is that kind of what are you trying to express something about the negative effects of religion in society with this?
To an extent, yeah. I think though that it's religion is an anesthetic to our existential realization about the universe. You know, we all fear death, right? And so as a substitute for embracing that actual death, we replace it with this ideal of eternal existence, and that makes us feel more comforted. You know, psychologically, we all crave some sort of explanation for the patterns that we see, right, in reality. And whether you want to call those coincidences or not, you know, I mean, do you believe coincidences exist? Right, it's just two things happening at once. Coincidence, two fucking things.
Yeah, there's statistically unlikely events that happen all the time, and they stick out in our minds because they seem unlikely, and we want to know why it is. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean there's an agent behind that. Otherwise, we'd have to give an explanation for both positive coincidences, like, oh, I found $100 on the sidewalk, or bad coincidences, oh, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and got hit by a falling meteorite or something like that.
And people, even people with like vague spiritual beliefs, cite these things as proof for their spirituality. Right? They say, oh, maybe you manifested these things into your being through the law of attraction, and that's what I say when I say I was a Unitarian. That's the kind of ideals that I adopted for a long time. I was really under the impression that there was some sort of unknown universal entity that was not well described by any religion, but that each one was kind of pinpointing little segments of it that they got wrong or correct in that specific instance. But I'm at the point now where that's just human psychology, you know, is to recognize these patterns and anthropomorphize natural phenomenon and call it something that it's actually not. Right? I mean, we used to have gods of thunder and lightning and, you know, and the wind and rain and the harvest, and we don't have that anymore because we know now that it's, you know, the god of the gaps has been diminished due to scientific realizations. But I actually have a good kind of anecdote talking about recognizing patterns. You know, this last week there was a teacher at the facility that I work at, and she was teaching the students. She was showing them did you ever see the similarities between the Kennedy and Lincoln assassinations? There's like a list of like 50 fucking things, you know, that they say is like, oh, this is truth, but in reality it was just propaganda that was put out in the 1960s, and it was misleading the way that some of these similarities were worded. That's evidence of us seeking patterns and trying to attribute agency to them, you know, and actually looking these, and she's teaching this as actual fact. Right? Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy that warned him not to go into the theater, and Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln that warned him not to go to Dallas. And when you actually look at the way the facts are lined up, you know, what that seems to be now is people just attributing coincidence and finding patterns in things that may not actually be there at all. You know, who gives a shit if their elections were 100 years apart, right? When you think about it logically, elections are every 4 years. That's gonna fall on an even number every single time. So yeah, statistically, eventually you're gonna fall on that 100-year distance of somebody getting elected. You know, it's just little similarities like that kind of, you know, contribute more to my antitheistic worldview at this point. And by the way, I reserve all rights to satirically exploit all religions equally. So if you take offense to this, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Yes. Take that, James. Or what
James.
Oh man. So you got your first single coming out on April 20th. Do you have any other ideas in the works for topics for future songs, stuff you also want to set to music?
Yeah, I've got 2 full albums worth of content right now that I'm just kind of going to put out over the next year and a half, 2 years or so, that are either in the works of being recorded or are already fully recorded, and just kind of ready to put out. You know, I've not been much into the local music scene here in DFW yet, and that's kind of my next step, is getting my foot in the door in that venue. But at this point, I'm just kind of promoting myself online, right, to get more engagement through I guess atheist means. There's not. I don't know a whole lot of atheists that go to local music venues, to see specifically an atheist rapper. But I think it's an untapped market that people aren't really appealing to, other than like Shelley Segal and Baba Brinkman, who's an atheist rapper. He's just kind of a novelty, though. There's like 3 or 4 songs about evolution that are really clever. They're well worded, but it's not something that I would go back and listen to over and again, and kind of create a cult following. It's more of just kind of like a one-time thing in my personal experience with with his music specifically. But
it's interesting. There are definitely artists out there who are not, they don't rap about atheism per se, but they'll talk about their deconversion and the feelings that they went through. I'm thinking of like a David Bazan, formerly of Pedro the Lion, former Christian artist. I'll think of great examples after we're done filming. But
Tim Minchin, maybe.
Yeah. He's more comedy, centralized, on his lyrics. He's hilarious, But I'm trying to take a more serious approach, and actually get the message to the youth and promote rational thought. Through mainstream music.
And do you have any concerns, like when you start actually getting out in local music scene? Do you have any concerns about the kind of reaction you may get? I think people who maybe aren't, overtly Christian, but still feel like they have to give it some sort of lip service, or feel like religion is respectable enough where talking against it would be a problem.
Not really. No. I got the cops calling me last weekend going to a protest, and I wasn't too bothered by it. I'm not scared of conflict in any sense at all. And people can come and share their beliefs, and I will gladly listen and hear you out, and also try to relay my beliefs in a respectful manner. That just comes from having several variety of beliefs throughout my life. Of being subjected to different systems of understanding the universe and being convinced of them at different points throughout my existence, but also being open-minded throughout that, and knowing that based on evidence, I will change my mind. And that's the important thing about, I don't even know if you want to call yourself an atheist or what, but about being an atheist, that's what's important, is not starting with the presupposition that either a God exists or doesn't exist, but also understanding that that's the most important question in the entirety of our existence.
All right, well, we're very happy to have you on the show, and wish you the best of luck as you pursue this music side of things. For the audience, if they want to hear more, if they want to keep track of you, where can they find your music? Are you on Spotify, other channels?
Not yet, but I'll be releasing on Spotify and Deezer and Apple and iTunes and Pandora, all the kind of the mainstream platforms, as well as Instagram, Facebook. I'm already on there, so if anybody wanted to reach out, please come do so. I've got merch for sale.
All right. Great Antitheist, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Atheist Edge.
We were all stiff as boards. He was the worst.
I can see that.
Hello, I'm on the YouTube.
We're going to be good friends. I'm on YouTube.
I can chroma key that
That's
out.
funny, man.
You know Matt Dillahunty?
Yeah.
I finally had the opportunity to do a video with him, and I was so nervous.
Yeah.
I'm repressing that. It never happened.
He didn't even talk. He just sitting there like.
It was like we were doing religion trivia, and the idea is we give
How
like
are you doing today?
Was like we do religion trivia, and the idea is we kind of goof off and banter or anything, and I was just like reading question 1, question 2.
You kind of.
Okay, bye now. Thanks.
Tanked in front of Matt Dillahunty, huh?
Yeah, it was not ideal.
All right, I don't have that honor today, but.